They say money is the root of all evil. But in my case, it was the lack of money that revealed the true evil in my stepmother's heart. I never thought I'd have to beg for my own life savings, but that's exactly what happened 3 months after my father's death. I'm Megan Crawford, 24, and until recently, I thought I had everything figured out. A promising career as a pediatric nurse, my own apartment in the city, and a close relationship with my dad despite the tension with my stepmother, Victoria. Then a routine physical changed everything. "You have a congenital heart defect," Dr. Chen said, pointing to my echocardiogram. "It's remarkable you haven't had symptoms before now, but the condition is progressing, and without surgery." She didn't need to finish the sentence. I could read the scan results myself. My heart was failing. The surgery would cost close to $250,000, even with insurance. Money that should have been available in my trust fund if Victoria hadn't frozen all my father's accounts immediately after his death. Dad's death had been sudden. A violent car crash that took him instantly. One minute he was texting me about dinner plans. The next I was identifying his body at the morgue. Victoria had swooped in immediately, taking control of everything from the funeral arrangements to the estate management. "Your father would have wanted it done properly," she'd said, wearing designer black and perfect makeup while I stood there in my wrinkled scrubs, having come straight from my hospital shift. I know how to handle these things. What she really knew how to handle was money, specifically how to keep it away from me. Despite Dad's constant reassurances that he'd provided for my future, Victoria claimed she couldn't find any documentation of the trust fund he'd mentioned so often. "Are you sure he wasn't just trying to make you feel secure?" she asked with fake sympathy. "You know how your father could be, making promises without thinking things through." But I knew better. Dad had been meticulous about financial planning, especially after losing my mom to cancer when I was young. He'd show me the trust fund paperwork on my 21st birthday, explaining how it would be there when I needed it for something important. Like graduate school or a house down payment, he'd said, hugging me. "Or any real emergency. I want you to chase your dreams without worrying about money, sweetheart." Now here I was, facing the biggest emergency of my life, and Victoria was blocking access to everything. "I simply can't release any funds right now," she said when I told her about the surgery. "The estate is still being settled. There are taxes to consider, proper procedures to follow. I could die without this surgery." She adjusted her expensive bracelet, a mourning gift she bought herself with Dad's money. "Don't be dramatic, Megan. You're young, you're working. Surely you can take out loans." My hands shook as I tried to maintain composure. My credit is already maxed out from nursing school. The banks won't approve a loan this large without collateral. Dad promised that money would be there if I needed it. "Yes, well," she smiled thinly, "your father promised me a lot of things too. Like that beach house we'd been planning. I can hardly put that on hold just because you've had some health issues." Health issues, as if a failing heart was a minor inconvenience. I left Victoria's mansion, my childhood home, now redecorated to erase all traces of my existence, feeling defeated. But something she'd said stuck with me, about the beach house plans. Dad had mentioned that project a few times, always with a strange smile. "Victoria is so excited about it," he'd said. "She has no idea what's really going on." At the time, I thought he was just humoring her expensive tastes. Now I wondered if there was something more to it. I started digging. First, I contacted Dad's old secretary, Margaret, who'd retired last year. She remembered the beach house discussions. "Your father was very specific about that property," she told me over coffee. "He insisted all the paperwork go through Harrison and Wells, not his usual real estate lawyers. Said it was part of some larger plan." Harrison and Wells. I recognized the name from conversations I'd overheard between Dad and Victoria. She'd wanted him to use her brother's law firm instead, but Dad had insisted on sticking with Harrison and Wells for anything related to the beach house. Getting an appointment with Mr. Harrison wasn't easy. His secretary initially said he was booked solid for months, but when I mentioned my name and the beach house property, things changed. "Mr. Harrison will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m., she said, her tone noticeably different. "He's been expecting you." The law office was imposing, all dark wood and leather furniture. Mr. Harrison himself was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes behind his expensive glasses. "Miss Crawford," he smiled, gesturing me to a seat. "I was wondering when you'd come find me. You know who I am?" Of course. Your father talked about you constantly during our meetings. He was very proud of his nurse daughter. He pulled out a thick file. He was also very concerned about making sure you were protected. My heart jumped. Protected from what? Not what? Who? Harrison's face grew serious. Your father knew Victoria better than she thought he did. He saw what she was capable of, especially when it came to money. That's why he set up certain contingencies. He opened the file, revealing property documents, legal agreements, and what looked like medical records. Your father came to see me 6 months ago, right after your annual physical. He said he had a feeling something wasn't right with your health, that you'd inherited your mother's heart condition. I stared at him. Dad had never mentioned any concerns about my health. He set up an elaborate system, Harrison continued. The beach house property was the linchpin. Victoria's been so focused on it, she hasn't noticed what's really happening with the rest of the estate. Which is what? Harrison smiled. That's going to take some explaining. But first, how soon do you need the surgery? Dr. Chin wants to do it within the next month. But without the money. Oh, the money's there, he assured me. In fact, there's rather a lot of it. Your father made very sure of that. The question is, are you ready to stand up to Victoria? Because once we activate these contingencies, there's no going back. I thought about Victoria's smug face as she dismissed my health concerns. About the way she'd erased every trace of me from my childhood home. About Dad's final text message, "Can't wait to see you for dinner, sweetheart. I have something important to tell you." "I'm ready," I said firmly. Harrison nodded, reaching for his phone. Good. Because Victoria's closing on the beach house is scheduled for tomorrow morning. And you're about to learn exactly what your father had planned for this moment. Part 2. The beach house closing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Harrison and Wells. Victoria arrived early, dressed expensively as always, trailing her personal assistant and her brother Robert, who was acting as her lawyer despite Dad's explicit instructions to use Harrison and Wells. I sat quietly in the corner of the conference room, having arrived even earlier at Mr. Harrison's request. Victoria barely glanced at me. "What is she doing here?" she asked Harrison coldly. "This is a private real estate matter." "Miss Crawford has every right to be here," Harrison replied, arranging documents on the table. "In fact, her presence is essential." Victoria's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Essential? I don't see how. I'm the one purchasing the property." "Actually," Harrison smiled, "you're not." He opened a folder and began distributing documents. "Before we proceed, there are some relevant details about this property that need to be discussed." "We've been over everything already," Victoria's brother interrupted. "Just get on with the closing." "Not quite everything." Harrison pressed a button on his desk phone. "Send them in, please." The conference room door opened and 3 people entered. Dr. Chen, my cardiologist, Margaret, Dad's former secretary, and an elderly man I didn't recognize. "What is this?" Victoria demanded, her composure cracking slightly. "This," Harrison said calmly, "is the execution of Richard Crawford's final plan for his estate. The beach house property was never meant to be yours, Victoria. It was merely bait, a distraction to keep you from noticing what was really happening with the rest of Richard's assets." He turned to the elderly man. "Dr. Morris, would you like to begin?" The man stepped forward. "I was Richard Crawford's personal physician for 20 years. 6 months ago, he came to me concerned about his daughter's health. He recognized symptoms similar to her mother's congenital heart condition and asked me to review her medical history." My hand flew to my chest. Dad had known. Richard then set up a medical trust, Harrison continued, specifically for Megan's cardiac care. However, he knew that if he made it obvious, certain parties might try to interfere. He looked pointedly at Victoria. Victoria's face had gone pale. "You have no proof." "Actually, we have quite a lot of proof." Harrison nodded to Margaret, who placed a USB drive on the table. "Your attempts to access Richard's accounts immediately after his death. Your loss of trust fund documentation. Your interesting phone calls to various banks." Margaret spoke up. "Mr. Crawford asked me to record all estate-related conversations in his final months, including several where Mrs. Crawford discussed plans to prevent Megan from accessing any inheritance." Victoria shot to her feet. "This is ridiculous. I am his widow, his heir." "One of his heirs," Harrison corrected, and subject to certain conditions he placed on the inheritance. Conditions you triggered the moment you denied Meghan access to funds for life-saving medical care. He pressed another button, and a screen descended from the ceiling. A video began playing. Dad, healthy and alive, sitting in this very office. If you're watching this, he began, then Victoria has done exactly what I feared she would. She's tried to deny Meghan access to her inheritance, specifically the medical trust I established. By doing so, she has violated the primary condition of her own inheritance. Victoria sank back into her chair. The beach house property, Dad continued, was never for sale. It's already owned by a trust I established for Meghan's medical care. Victoria's purchase was a test. One she has failed spectacularly by prioritizing a luxury property over my daughter's life. Dr. Chen stepped forward. The trust contains sufficient funds for Meghan's surgery and ongoing care. As the supervising physician named in the trust documents, I can access these funds immediately. Furthermore, Harrison added, by violating the conditions of the inheritance, Victoria has forfeit her claim to the estate. All assets will now transfer to the secondary heir, Meghan. Victoria's brother was frantically flipping through papers. This can't be legal. I assure you it is, Harrison said. Richard was very thorough. The conditions are quite clear. Any attempt to prevent Meghan from accessing necessary medical care would trigger immediate forfeiture of inheritance rights. He tricked me, Victoria whispered. All those conversations about the beach house. He protected his daughter, Harrison corrected, as he promised her mother he would. The video continued, Dad's voice filling the room. Victoria, if you're watching this, know that I saw through you long ago. I saw your manipulation, your greed, your complete lack of maternal feeling toward my daughter. I stayed married to you because I needed time to set up these protections properly. Consider this my last gift to you. A lesson about the consequences of choosing money over human life. Tears rolled down my cheeks as Dad's image smiled gently. Meghan, sweetheart, I'm so sorry I'm not there to help you through this. But I've made sure you'll have everything you need. The best medical care, financial security, and most importantly, freedom from those who would harm you. Be well, my brave girl. I love you. The screen went dark. Victoria left the conference room in tears, her brother trailing behind with threats of legal action. Harrison looked unconcerned. Your father had the best legal minds in the country review these documents, he told me. Victoria can fight it, but she won't win. The evidence of her attempts to deny you medical care is overwhelming. Dr. Chen was already on her phone, scheduling my surgery. Margaret hugged me, whispering how proud Dad had been of me. Through my own tears, I saw Victoria's assistant slipping out, already updating her LinkedIn profile. The surgery took place 2 weeks later. It was successful, though recovery has been challenging. The trust Dad set up covers everything: medical bills, physical therapy, even a private nurse to help during the first few months. Victoria contested the inheritance, of course. Her case was dismissed in record time, the judge particularly unimpressed by evidence of her blocking access to medical funds. She's moved in with her brother, her designer wardrobe and luxury cars sold to pay legal fees. The beach house, my beach house, is beautiful. Dad had been renovating it secretly, adapting it for someone with medical needs. Elevator to the upper floors, emergency response system, even a small medical room for monitoring equipment. He thought of everything. I found a letter from him in the master bedroom, dated just days before his death. My dearest Meghan, if you're reading this, then everything has worked out as I planned. I'm sorry for the deception, for not telling you about my suspicions regarding your health sooner, but I knew Victoria would act exactly as she has, and in doing so, would reveal her true nature to everyone. The house is yours, along with everything else I built over my lifetime. But more importantly, you're safe, you're cared for, and you're free from Victoria's influence. Your mother made me promise to always protect you. I hope I've managed to keep that promise, even after I'm gone. Rest here, heal here, and know that you were loved, completely and unconditionally, by both your parents. All my love, Dad. Yesterday, Dr. Chen declared my heart fully healed. I'm back at work part-time, my nurse's uniform fitting a bit looser after the surgery, but my smile bigger than ever. The pediatric ward kids love hearing the story of how my dad outsmarted the wicked stepmother, though I tell it as a fairy tale, leaving out the darker details. Margaret visits often, bringing Dad's old photos and sharing stories I'd never heard. She's helped me restore the house to the way it was when I was growing up, before Victoria's redecorating erased our family history. The medical trust Dad set up has enough money to help others too. I've established a foundation to assist children needing cardiac care, naming it after my mother. It feels right, carrying forward both my parents' legacy of caring. As for Victoria, I heard she's writing a memoir about being betrayed by her late husband. No publishers seem interested. Turns out, a story about a stepmother choosing a beach house over her stepdaughter's life doesn't cast the author in a very sympathetic light. Last week, I sat on the beach house deck, watching the sunset. My heart monitor showed a strong, steady rhythm, just like Dad had fought to ensure. In the end, he'd given me more than money or property. He'd given me a future, free from Victoria's manipulation and secure in the knowledge that I was loved enough to be protected even after he was gone. Sometimes love shows itself in grand gestures or emotional declarations. And sometimes it shows itself in careful planning and contingency clauses and medical trusts, in a father's determination to protect his daughter even when he knew he wouldn't be there to see it happen. Dad understood that. Victoria never will. But that's okay. My heart is healing in every way that matters.